This morning, Sunday is likely to be accused of joining the ranks of so-called climate change deniers. That is not our intention. Instead, our cover story is an examination of whether some of the most basic principles of scientific inquiry have been sacrificed in the debate over increased levels of greenhouse gas emissions. Is the pressure to conform on climate change now silencing scientists who dare to dissent?
Those of you who may want a refresher on global warming, here it is in 5 slides or less.
For a prophet of doom, Randall Pearce puts on a very entertaining show.
It's sort of akin to putting a doona on a bed in January. Okay, we're overheating. We're overheating as a planet. An inconvenient truth.
If Al Gore is the high priest of human-induced global warming, then Pearce is his travelling evangelist.
5 to 10 years, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro.
He's one of more than 1,000 speakers Gore has trained to spread the message from his Oscar-winning movie, An Inconvenient Truth.
If this were to go sea level worldwide,
let me begin. My journey as a climate messenger began in my home country of Canada.
And tonight, Pearce will tell this well-heeled audience in Melbourne the time for disputing the word is over.
What you don't want is bushfires in the Grampians. You don't want billowing smoke rolling down Burke Street like we saw here a year ago, January. I was here. I thought my friend had taken me to Mumbai.
Every presentation is different. You learn to work with the props you have. Sometimes you just get lucky.
I mean, this little girl is going to spend her whole life dealing with this crisis. And, what we have to do is we have to make sure that we don't scare the children. I'm quite serious.
It's this call to emotion that drives our understanding and acceptance of climate change. At a time when interest in science education is waning, Randall Pearce and his ilk are the new teachers, or some would say the new preachers.
You do have to connect on the emotional level, and if I'm an evangelical for the climate, so be it. I mean, I think we have to get the message through, and we can't simply do that through reason. We have to reach people where they live, in places like this, in their own communities. That's how you really make a difference.
Do you get anybody who comes out of this talk saying, I'm still a denier? Do you get anybody like that?
haven't seen a denier for months.
But others are not so sure.
It's not about consensus.
Biologist Jennifer Marahasi knows the world is warming, but she's not convinced of the reasons.
I'm very proud to be a skeptic. I mean, my trainings as a biologist, and the early biologists, natural historians, wore skepticism as a badge of honour. Take Thomas Huxley, for example, a colleague of Charles Darwin. He used to say, skepticism is the highest of duties, blind faith, the one unpardonable sin. I played the game of love and war.
Social historian Professor Don Aitken also sees dangers in conducting science by consensus. He's been told he risks his career by speaking out in favour of empirical inquiry and skepticism.
But I've been dismissed as a man trashing our hard-earned reputation or pissing away a good reputation, that sort of stuff. I think this is very odd talk. You know, I've been in higher education for 50 years. People don't usually talk like that. And so I begin to wonder, what lies behind it?
Today, Sunday asks, how much do we really know about the natural world around us? And as we denounce climate change deniers, do we yet understand the limits of our knowledge?
My dream will tumble to the ground.
I've never heard a real scientist say that the debate is over in a scientific matter. All scientists, in my view, and I've met thousands of them, know that we only know at the moment in a contingent way. That is to say, tomorrow somebody could disprove it. But at the moment, we'd like to say, well, for the most part, we think this is the case. And that's what you're getting about global warming. For the moment, the consensus among a lot of scientists is that humans have caused a lot of it. They can't tell you how much. They can measure it, they can model it, they can assert it, but they can't actually demonstrate it.
Your attention, please. Thank you for choosing Earth as your planetary vehicle. In the event of continued inaction in the face of global warming, your seat cushion can be used as a flotation device.
The connection between human activity and global warming is now firmly established in popular imagination. It's no longer a theory, but a law. Elevated carbon dioxide levels are driving up global temperatures. Catastrophe is nigh. Is the science of global warming, anthropogenic global warming, now settled?
Yes, it is, pretty much. In terms of the projections that were made, in 2001, that all of the debates have been around, there's been enough time now for scientists to collect data on what's happening in the real world to compare with those projections. And we now know that those projections were very conservative. The worst case scenario, or worse than that, is now emerging from the real world data.
Professor Tim Flannery.
We live in an age where science has conquered ignorance. And the ignorant, which is most of us, do not challenge scientists like former Australian of the Year, Professor Tim Flannery.
Australians as a whole understand more about the issue now than they did.
When he tells us that counter views are not to be trusted, much less funded from the public purse. So basically, to have a counter view is junk science now. Is that your proposition?
Look, I think there's some genuine scientists out there who are in that 1% or less who have a particular objection. They have a valid viewpoint. For every one of those, there's probably 10 or 50 paid by industry to mislead us.
Bill Kinnenmuth is not a paid lackey of the oil industry.
The things we don't know.
And he too is concerned that consensus is stifling debate.
Well, there's certainly not a consensus about global warming, because there's people like myself who don't believe that we can say that's going to happen.
Kinnenmuth is a weatherman with 40 years' experience in the Bureau of Meteorology. In that period, the sum of knowledge on climate grew dramatically, but from an extremely low base.
There's a lot of broad agreement about the climate and how it works, and most people have got a general feeling for that. What we've got to back off from, I think, is this advocacy that we actually know what's going to happen, and therefore we're pushing governments into taking actions which are premature. And to actually say the science is settled means that the government will say, look, well, why give more money to research in climate? The scientists say the science is settled, but it really isn't.